Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this semi-YouTube event titled Steering Towards Excellence, a Roadmap for HOPA's Board Elections. My name is Chris Campen, and I am currently this year's HOPA Nominations Committee Chair. And with me is Alyson Leonard, who is the co-chair, joining me today. This is an overview of what we're going to go through today, and we're going to run through the roles and responsibilities of being on the HOPA Board Committee. We're going to go through the nominations process, the applications process, evaluation of the application, and then finally run through top 5 tips to strengthen your application and run through some question and answers that are common questions that come up in the application process. So just to introduce, overall, the nominations subcommittee is seeking active and diverse members at HOPA with strong leadership skills to run for the board this fall. Self-nominations are encouraged and all nominees must be HOPA members in good standing. So I think that's really important to recognize is that self-nominations are encouraged. However, you can be nominated by another HOPA member, but it's important to look at this process early in the application timeline to ensure that you have enough time to be able to fill out the application if you have that interest in being on the HOPA committee or within the HOPA board of directors. This is the nomination subcommittee this year, and I introduced Alyson Leonard, also members Helen Marshall, Gina Nightingale, Sally Barber, Ashley Glode, and Latha Radhakrishnan. Next, I'm going to run through the position roles and responsibilities. So this cycle, this election cycle, and every year may be a little bit different. And the reason for that is each year there's a little bit of variability in the types of positions that are available based on the board makeup. And so there is essentially a president or a president-elect position that is up for election each year. And each time that president-elect serves a 3-year term. So there's the president-elect, president, and immediate past president. So if you think about it as a 3-year term, you have 3 sort of phases in that cycle of the 3-year term. Next, there is an open position this year for a secretary. And this is one position, so you can imagine that this is available this year, but it may not be available each year because it is a 3-year term. There is one position available this year. And then finally, overall, there are 4 board members at large within the board of directors. However, this year there is only one position that is available, and the member at large serves a 3-year term as well. The next section that we're going to run through is just an overall view of some of the responsibilities that are required to become a president-elect or a secretary or a member at large. And so the president-elect naturally is going to have the largest time commitment of all the appointments that are within the election. The time commitment for president-elect is approximately, and this is a wide range because the number of hours per month may vary based on the responsibilities of that specific month, as well as travel. And for example, requirement to be at the HOPA annual meeting is going to increase that specific time frame required during that month, for example. So you can see here approximately 10 to 30 hours per month with an average travel commitment of 2 days per month with some variability there. So first of all, the leadership role. So we'll assume the role of president, presiding over all board meetings and the annual business meeting. And so this is going to be very important. Every board meeting and the annual business meeting, so very involved in each of those. In terms of advocacy and representation, really enhancing the public understanding by serving as an advocate for the members and the profession and participating in external meetings with stakeholders. And this is very important to advance the goals of HOPA and really to be an advocate internally and externally. Number 3, nominations and mentoring. The president-elect will assist in nominating volunteer leadership, assigning board members to councils and committees. Number 4, committee responsibilities. And so the president-elect will serve as the vice chair of the Finance Committee, chair of the Executive Committee, and member of the Public Policy Committee. And finally, strategic oversight. Working with the board and executive committee to oversee strategic planning, program evaluation, fiscal stewardship, and resource development while evaluating association management services. And so you'll see this reflected in the application for president-elect. A lot of the questions really focus in on these 5 areas, but we'll talk a little bit more about the application itself in just a couple minutes. For the secretary responsibilities, time commitment is less, but is approximately 5 to 10 hours per month with average travel commitment of about 1 day per month. But that, again, will vary significantly based on the month and what are the needs of that time period. So first, responsibility committee appointments and assisting the president with committee appointments. The secretary also will assume the office of secretary at the conclusion of the annual conference and serve in that capacity for the 3 years. And very involved in meeting minutes, ensuring accurate and comprehensive note-taking, meeting minutes maintained for all meetings, and reviewing drafts from all board meetings for minute review. Finally, the at-large director responsibility, and again, noting there is 1 open position for that this year in 2023. And the time commitment is 2 to 10 hours per month with an average travel commitment of about 3 weeks per year, which again, this can vary on when this actually will be throughout the year. And for example, as I mentioned, the HOPA annual meeting would be an expectation, along with their additional board meetings that occur throughout the year. However, there is the potential and the option for virtual attendance as well. So first of all, assuming the at-large member at the conclusion of the annual conference and serving for 3 years, and ensuring compliance with all general board member policies and responsibilities outlined in the policy manual. Now, the overall general board responsibilities, this is broken up into sort of 5 separate areas. First of all, financial stewardship and adhering to the financial policies and exercising fiduciary responsibility. And we do ask that within the application, really kind of get to that area around fiduciary responsibility and ensuring financial policies. Number 2, board duties, assisting in carrying out with the duties of the board. Number 3, strategic direction, helping set the strategic direction of the organization. And this is reflected in the application, and really trying to work with the committee, the overall board of directors, and set the direction for the organization in the future. Operational knowledge, becoming familiar with the operational policies, including bylaws, and just being aware of these policies and procedures. And then finally, number 5, effective communication and oversight, communicating regularly with the staff, members, partners, internally and externally, and aligning on the mission, overseeing and evaluating programs, and serving as the board liaison to committees that are assigned to that specific board member. Board members, there are some restrictions, and so this is important to note. There are some important restrictions to consider when you're considering applying for a position. Number 1, speaking and serving as a moderator in external symposia during HOPA meetings is not allowed. Number 2, IRC and ad boards are not allowed at the annual conference or other organization programs. Number 3, award application review. Review an award application and providing selection recommendations to the recognition committee is a restriction, so it's prohibited. Number 4, acting as a primary investigator for a grant award supported by HOPA would be a restriction. And so important to note that for the HOPA members that are involved in research and potentially a grant primary investigator. And number 5, any support or any board nomination or influence. So nominating individuals for board election or influencing the committee overseeing the election process. And so discussing board member role, responsibility, expectations, and encouraging members to run for office, however, is acceptable. So at this point, I will hand it over to Alyson Leonard, who's going to go through the next section.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Next, I'll go over some information, kind of go over the general election process. I'll go over nominations, the application, and then also voting. This is a great timeline overview. So if you're looking back at this presentation later, these are the important deadlines to add to your calendar so that you have this information and you don't miss any deadlines and you kind of know when things are happening. So this is a good reference. Specifically, looking at the nomination process, nominations open on August 1st and are open for a month until September 1st. Nominations are done online through HOPA's Election Center. Some information that's requested in the form for the nominee are the name, position they're being nominated for, email, their workplace, and then phone number. And as Chris mentioned earlier, you can self-nominate, so we encourage that. If you think you're ready to be a part of the board, please do nominate yourself, but you can also nominate others. There's the option for people, if they want to remain confidential when they're nominating someone, they can check that box if they wish. If there's any information that's missing from the nomination form, HOPA staff will reach out to get that information. That way they can contact the people who have been nominated. They'll reach out to all nominees and ask if they accept or decline their nomination. Those nominees that do accept will then go on to fill out the formal application. Nominators are allowed to nominate more than one nominee, but they do need to go on and do different web forms per nomination. Members of the board and nomination subcommittee are not allowed to submit nominations, so that is a restriction for our groups. Next, moving into the application process. This is also done online. HOPA staff will send you a web link that to the application. There is also a PDF of the application available in the election center. And this is something that you can use to help prepare, kind of look through the things that are going to be asked of you, the questions, start ruminating on your answers and kind of thinking about how you're going to address the questions that we ask. The application, once you're ready to start working on that, it is something that you can start on and then save and go back to your progress. We estimate that it will take a couple hours to complete this. Really, if you've already kind of thought through your answers and are just using that time to kind of put it into words. It kind of is divided into 3 sections. So the first is the candidate application. Next is we ask you to disclose any conflicts of interest. And then we'll have you upload some information, so photo, CV, and then letter of support from your employer. And this is basically saying that they know the time commitment that it's going to take for you to be on the board and that they're in support of that. These applications are due on September 22nd. This year, something that's new, so if you've applied in the past or you've thought about applying in the past, something that you'll notice that's different is that we do have 2 applications that are tailored to the specific positions. So for this year, there's an application for president-elect and then a separate application for general board members. So for this year, that would be the secretary and at-large members. And this is just having some questions that are more specifically tailored to those positions. Some things that we feel make well-qualified candidates, so having a sincere interest in being on the board, being active in HOPA, also knowing and understanding HOPA's purpose, values, and strategic plan, and then kind of having goals and examples of how they would help HOPA's advancement. We want people who have been actively involved in hematology oncology practice and then have made contributions to pharmacy practice. People that are recognized as leaders and have leadership experience is great. strong connections within the pharmacy community, and then also those great organizational skills that again would help support HOPA meet their purpose, values, and strategic planning. As far as the evaluation process, that's where the subcommittee comes into play. So we have a rubric that kind of aligns with the questions that are asked in the applications and the other information that's requested of the applicant. We'll review those individually, then come together as a group and discuss the scores and the application. Again, the things that we're looking at are HOPA engagement, contribution to pharmacy, leadership skills, strategic thinking, communication, collaboration, decision-making, alignment with HOPA strategic plan. And we also look at diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then there's a blank that gives you the option to add any unique skills that you feel that may benefit HOPA. So we are open to hearing about those things too. The nomination subcommittee will then put together a final slate of candidates that will go to the board for final approval. Once they've done that, the candidates will be asked to accept, and then the voting period will open for those candidates to be voted on by HOPA members. This will be open from November 2nd to December 2nd. Next, Chris will go over some of the ways that you can make your application stronger.
Thanks so much, Alyson. What we're going to go through next is what are the top 5 ways to make your application stronger, and just really some tips from experience on being on the nominations committee for the last couple of years. And we'll start with number 1. Really don't forget the details. And that's something that I think is really important to think about over the duration, over a period of time. It's something that think about, if you're right now unsure if you want to be a HOPA board member, but you're thinking long term, maybe 5, 6, 7 years down the road, make sure you put all the details down and keep track of everything you do in terms of presentation, how you've been involved in HOPA, any committees you've been involved in, any other HOPA related activities that you volunteered for or been involved in. And so really try to, over the long period, really write down what you've done, keep track of it, update your CV. It'll save you a lot of time and also, make you reflect back on your experiences over the long term. Number 2, include what makes you unique or different. And historically, when we look at the applications, we see such an amazing group of applicants, of pharmacists that have excelled over many years, and been involved in HOPA committees or been involved in many other groups outside of HOPA as well. So we're seeing really strong applications. So think about what makes you unique or different. We really like to look at that information that you include in the application that helps make you stand out. Number 3, be strategic. Review the strategic plan. What kind of skill sets do you bring to the table that can help assist the strategic plan? This is really important. We want to think about the long term in terms of HOPA, the visions, what you can bring to the table, what experiences you have that can help with a strategic plan over the long term. Number 4, think ahead. Where do you see the organization in 5 years from now, for example? When we look at the application and we see what you've written and how it's tied into the strategic plan, we really like to think about that, or like to look at the ideas that are put in the application. What types of thoughts you have around the HOPA strategic plan and how you can advance HOPA's mission for the future, I think is really important. Number 5, gain support. Complete the employer consent form and have that discussion early on with your employer, your boss, because there is a significant time commitment that's required, and we want to make sure that is approached early, as it may require a duration of time to be able to get approval and support from your employer. And now with that, I'm going to transfer it over to our HOPA past president, Larry Buie, and President-elect Jolynn Sessions.
My name is Larry Buie, And I have been an oncology pharmacist now for about 18 years. And it was my pleasure to serve on the HOPA board for 2 different consecutive terms. So I was an at-large member from 2017 until 2020. And then I served as HOPA president from 2021 to 22 and rolled off of the board in 2023.
My name is Jolynn Sessions. I am currently the president-elect of HOPA, so next year I'll be president of HOPA. I have previously served on the board with 2 terms as treasurer from 2014 to 2019.
So it was really sort of my desire to use my experience to be able to advocate on behalf of patients in our profession that led me to run for the board. And I can say, now reflecting back on my time, that it was actually, I think, just one of the highlights of my career, and certainly a privilege to be able to work in that capacity, I think, again, on behalf of our membership and our patients.
I think, like a lot of people, it took somebody saying, hey, Jolynn, you've been involved in HOPA on the committee level and the committee leadership level. You should run for board. This is something that you can do. This is something that you should do. And there's part of me that's a little embarrassed about saying that, because, it really shouldn't have to take somebody telling you or encouraging you to do that. But I think for a lot of us, that's the really the initial motivation, or the initial, well, hey, they think I can do this. Maybe I can do this.
I think it did enhance my communication style as well. I look back, and again, having a group that may have very different opinions, I think being able to think and listen and thoughtfully respond to things that are being said and stated is another way that I grew.
Just having the opportunity to get with other folks from other places around the country, different practice areas, was really amazing to see everybody working together towards a common goal. So I think that, seeing that and being part of that, and seeing so many fantastic strides that HOPA has made over time, and the really amazing work that our volunteers do, has been all inspiring. It's been a amazing professional experience.
It takes actually a long time as a new board member to actually figure out all of the areas that HOPA is engaged and involved in, how you can contribute to all of these different areas. And so I think by the time I found myself at the end of my experience as an at-large member, I did want to do more. We were in the middle of our strategic plan at the time, and so there were still ways that I thought we could work to achieve those. And I do think about some of the really, really important things that we were able to accomplish. The development of the DEI task force. I think that really sort of changed and shaped the way that HOPA moves forward. I think identifying ways that we would be able to sort of build out a framework for collaborative research, the OCC, all of those things were new initiatives. And I am able to look back now and I think of all that we accomplished, and I'm grateful. I think the real benefit to me, having served in those consecutive roles, is that it really does set me up to be able to sort of continue to advocate for HOPA, the profession and our patients. And I don't know that I would be able to do that quite as effectively if I hadn't have served in those roles. So I think that is a huge benefit that it gives.
I think as you get to know your fellow board members, you're spending a lot of time with them. You're making a lot of very important decisions, if not just for HOPA, but for the profession as a whole. And those types of things, lead to a lot of closeness and a lot of interpersonal relationships, from a professional standpoint. And I think that that's really one of the highlights, I think, of being on the board, is you're working with these fantastic people that are also motivated, but you get to leave and call them your friends as well.
And it was always a pleasure to give the time. you are busy, you do have a lot of things to do, but whenever you're thinking about the mission, the things that need to be done, it's actually quite easy to set aside the time for something that you're so passionate about.
Throughout my career, I've had the benefit and the good favor of having a variety of different practice settings. I've had the opportunity to work in groups, with a variety of different oncology pharmacists. But a lot of my career, I've worked as kind of an N of one, where at any particular institution, I'm the only pharmacist or oncology pharmacist there. And I think that that's been really one of the great things about not just HOPA, but being part of the board, is that you are part of a group of people with a common goal and common mentality. Whether you call that a support system or a place to share resources and both better yourself as a provider and a practitioner and as a pharmacist, or learn new leadership skills, that definitely has been a very clear career benefit in being involved in HOPA at all kinds of level, including on the board. If you're interested and you've got a passion for oncology pharmacy, you can do it, and I encourage you to do it. And don't necessarily wait for somebody to tell you that you can do it, because you can.
Okay, in this next section, what we're going to go through is some of the most common questions that we've received in the past from our membership. And so if we want to go to the next slide, Alyson will get it started.
So Chris, can industry members serve on the board?
That is a really, really great question that we often hear as a question. So the HOPA president, and therefore the president-elect, cannot work for ACPE in eligible companies. So for industry, for example, outside of these positions, there's no restrictions for individuals working in industry who are interested in running for a board position. However, we do recommend you to talk to your employer very early on, as some employers may have policies or other restrictions which may limit their ability to run for a board position. All right, Alyson, who can run for the HOPA's board of directors?
So all members in good standing are eligible to run for HOPA's board of directors. So whether that be pharmacists or technicians, if you're in good standing, you can run. Who's eligible to vote?
That's a great question. So in terms of voting, full members and technician members are eligible to vote. The following members can't vote. So associate members, resident or fellow members, and student members. All right, Alyson, how long does it take to complete the application?
So I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. So I think if you take some time to kind of look at the PDF that goes through some of the questions, or go take a look at the web form in advance before you actually sit down for that time to actually complete it, I think that will definitely expedite the time that it takes you to get through the application. So I would definitely set aside an hour or two for that time where you're actually typing out your answers. But if you kind of start thinking about it at the beginning of the application period, and then sit down once you kind of thought about your answers, and think about those examples of leadership that you can include and have those ready to go, I think setting aside about 1 to 2 hours will be adequate. Do I have to submit a platform statement for my application?
Yes, and that's really important for us on the nominations committee when we are reviewing the application. We do look at the platform statement within the application. But it is for individuals who are slated to run in the election will be asked to provide an election platform statement video as well to share with their members, or to share with the members. Next, if I've applied in the past and want to access my previous application to use again, can I do that?
You can do that. You just need to reach out to HOPA staff to get access to that previous application.
All right, and to close this out, Alyson, I wanted to thank you so much for your support and participation in this. And if you have any questions, you can see the links available, as well as the contact information via email. And it's very important to reach out. If you're considering applying for a position this year, definitely reach out and ask any questions that you may have before starting the application process.